Welcome into the Skinny Podcast, the weekly Potpourri edition. I'm Richard Skinner, Local12.com digital sports columnist and editor with Rick Broering. As always, it's presented by Blake, the attorney Maislin. We got college basketball to get to, recap the Crosstown shootout. We'll look around the Bengals landscape. Got a little college football playoff stuff we're going to talk about. A gambling segment like we always do. And my favorite part of the podcast where you can ask me a question on any topic. Hit up the X first. Ask Skinny Anything is the hashtag. I've got one here, Rick, a list that somebody asked me to do. I'll do that list during that segment. And let's just take it away because we got a lot to get to.
Yeah, I think there's a good Ask Skinny Anything. I can't remember what they were, but I remember when I was putting them in that I feel like one of them was pretty good. Right, so cool. We'll get to that here in a little bit. But first, let's get through the Bengals stuff. There's not a lot here to sort out, but one of the big conversations in the city this week was that exchange between Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow that took place on the sidelines. We've had a John Boy lip reading breakdown now of it. And essentially it looked like it boiled down to Joe was blowing up saying that he was embarrassed by the Bengals play, or maybe perhaps a certain instance that happened, like Jay Morrison seemed to think this week. And Zach Taylor was trying to tell him, hey, settle down, just enjoy the win. What was your take on that whole exchange?
I mean, those that think that there's an animosity relationship between the two, I don't think you understand sometimes the dynamic of coach and player in sports. I mean, those kind of interactions happen constantly. They happen between coaches. I remember once I was assistant in a game, and I was asking our coach when a player was getting in trouble towards the end of a game. I said, "Do you want a timeout? Do you want a timeout? Do you want a timeout?" Just to see, so it was the thought process in his head. The official heard me say timeout. He gave us a timeout, and the coach goes, "No, I don't want one." He turned around and lit me up. And after the game, he goes, "Man, I'm sorry. I should have done." I said, "No, you're fine. I'm a big boy. It's okay." Those things happen, man. So that part of it, I don't think is a big deal whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I wonder, I was listening to Paul Dehner's podcast, and I thought he asked the best question about this, which is, why was everybody so infatuated by this exchange in this video? Because like when I saw it, I kind of just had that looks like a super competitive quarterback and coach going back and forth. I don't even think they're mad at each other necessarily. It might be somebody else on the team or something that fell through the cracks or whatever. I mean, who knows? But like that didn't seem like much to me. But it became a big topic of conversation this week, and people were very worked up. Do you think it's because people want there to be some animosity between Joe and Zach?
Yes, because they want because who's going to come out the winner in that, right? If
Joe, they want Zach gone.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what it's all about. Look, Joe can't get along with the head coach. Go replace the head coach because we're not going to replace Joe Burrow. No, it has nothing to do with any of that stuff. And I thought they both explained it really well this week. Joe especially, I thought, explained it really well about striving for perfection, being upset with himself. Listen, he wasn't just talking about holding the team accountable. He was talking about holding himself accountable. I like, he used the term standard. I'm playing to a standard. And I think there's something to be said for that. It's not just playing to win 16-13. You're playing to the standard. And that standard for this offense right now is about a 30-point a game standard, right? And Joe Burrow throwing 3 touchdowns and not committing 3 turnovers. So you could see he was also, I don't know if you caught the one where he threw the interception on the deep ball to Chase, and he was looking at the tablet on the sideline. He slammed it down because I think he realized that throw needed to be in a better spot than that. I needed to throw it maybe more towards the pylon and give Jamar more of a chance. And so he's made it himself for that. And I think that was just a frustrating day in the second half, especially because the defense coming up with takeaways, and one was returned for a touchdown. Another one should have been returned for a touchdown. And so the offense didn't get many chances to rectify some things in the second half either. So I think that is literally what that was all about. And anybody making anything more of it is just silly.
For some people, I think they definitely want there to be a rift between Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor. That's definitely a part of it. I'll give some fans the benefit of the doubt, though, and think there is sort of there's been this murmur all season long of like, we need Joe Burrow to put his foot down and say enough's enough. We need to see him blow up. We need him to be the leader of this organization. And for some people, maybe that's what this signified, is that he is, even when they're playing well and winning a game handily, he's holding everyone accountable down there. And maybe some people just really find that intriguing or enjoy watching that. But I just don't understand the intrigue of this video, I guess is my point.
I think people want there to be a wedge between coach and quarterback, so they'll get rid of the coach. I really think that's what that's mostly about. Listen, I mean, I've done this before as a coach. I've come out of games having lost and actually be happy with how a team played. Listen, you guys did everything you could, and we just wound up with a short end. There's been games I won by 20 points, and my team's won by 20 points, and I've been mad because we didn't play the game the right way. And so I do understand. I think anybody that's competitive in that nature holds themselves, or at least should hold themselves to some level of standard.
Yeah, and that's the old process-oriented approach, right? It's not about the result so much as long as the process is you're doing things the right way. moving on, Skinny, on the Bengals, how much time have you spent poring over the Bengals playoff scenarios at this point?
Well, I did write a story on Monday just laying out what had to happen, and I think I confused our news team when they tried to write it because I don't think they understood. One of the scenarios is that either the Chargers or Broncos have to lose their last three. And I was watching our Bob Herzog, and he's just reading what was written, and he I don't know if they took my stuff or whatever. So he said, wait a minute, they both play Thursday. How can they both lose their last three? And I'm like, no, dude, the word either. Either has to lose their last three. So, yes, one of them is losing. We're doing this on Thursday. One of them is going to lose tonight. And then you need the one that loses tonight to then lose their last two. The better scenario for the Bengals, obviously, is it's the Broncos, because then you can hand them loss number 2 of the 3 losses they need to have. And then, depending on this Pat Mahomes thing, and maybe it drags to the last week where they're playing for the 1 seed, they got to play Kansas City the final week. So there is a small path there. I don't think there's any path if Denver wins the Thursday night game. The Chargers hold the head-to-head tiebreaker. They still have to play New England and it's somebody else bad. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. New England, the Raiders are their last 2. They're not losing both of those. So the path is literally Denver has to lose the Thursday night game. Then the Bengals beat them. And then that last week at Pittsburgh becomes meaningful for both teams. And they have to beat Kansas City. And the Bengals would have to beat Pittsburgh.
Something else that's been brought up for probably a month or more now, but it's been the conversation's been changing a little bit over the last week or so, is the Lou Anarumo idea of if he's coaching for his job or not right now. Do you get that sense? Do you think these last few games are Lou Anarumo making his case to stick around?
I don't. I'm going to tell you the die's probably been cast. Maybe if this team makes the playoffs and the defense does something special to get them there the last few weeks, or then does something special in the playoffs. But barring that, I think the decision's already been made in that regard. I really do. And I don't see Lou coming back. I hope he does. I don't think he is to blame for this. I know fans want to make it easy and say it's the coach's fault, because it's always the coach's fault. But again, there's also, when you have seasons like this and a unit underperforming like it is, no matter why it's underperforming, I believe it's because of poor personnel more than anything else, not poor scheme or coaching. But somebody pays the price for that, Rick. You know that. Everybody knows that. In fact, if you got Lou Anarumo over a beer, he would tell you he understands it's probably coming, and probably a position coach on that side of the ball as well is probably going to go. That's just the way things work. I don't know if that's right. I don't think I agree with it, but that's just the way it is.
I think it's probably right to some extent. I mean, at a certain point, failure falls on the person in charge of that unit. And I understand there are other circumstances at play here, but the other part of this that is the easy way out for the organization is it's much easier to say that one guy was the problem who was in charge than to say we need 11 new starters.
No, that's right. I mean, and that's, again, it goes back to the point. That's just how this works. And then that puts the coach, then I will say that then puts the head coach on the hot seat, because you've tried to isolate the one issue, and the issue this year is clearly the defense. Again, whether who's to blame for that, we can argue that till we're blue in the face. But you've isolated what the issue is, and then you have to rectify that. And sometimes the rectifying of that is, for better or for worse, making a coaching change.
Sam Hubbard tore his PCL while catching a touchdown in this game. What does his future look like?
I wrote it, a kind of an injury update story. I kind of was thinking that we were going to get news on Wednesday that his season was over. It's probably trending in that direction, but for right now, it's still week to week. And I wrote it with the tint of Sam Hubbard's last play as a Bengal may have been him catching a touchdown pass, and I firmly believe that's the case. The only thing I can think of, I would say this: he will not be back on the current contract he's on. He's got one more year. He's due $9 million in base salary next year. He would only count $2 million against the cap if they let him go and they release him. Or they can maybe say, listen, you're such a culture guy for us. 1 year, $2.5 million, with some incentives thrown in there, we'll keep you around. I think that's the only way that Sam Hubbard comes back in 2025 with the Bengals.
Any other thoughts on the Bengals?
No, I mean, it's weird to have this feeling that we are going to take this to the last week. I really think we are. I don't know what that means. I don't know why that is, but it just feels like we're taking this to the last week. In this season of craziness, and the way that game on Sunday was about as wacky as you can imagine, with all the penalties and the turnovers and the Jordan Battle nonsense and the Sam Hubbard touchdown reception, this season is going to go to the last week.
Well, Skinny, it feels like we've reached the weekend at Bernie's portion of the season
Yes,
where the
yes.
Bengals are dead, but we're still carrying them
Prop 'em
around
up.
from week
Prop-
to week, being like, well, I don't know. It's still kind of alive here. Right?
Yeah.
Let's play it out.
I mean, at most places you look, any analytics place you look gives them anywhere from a 4 to 6% chance to make the playoffs. That's pretty damn slim. But I do know this: it goes up a ton if Denver loses this game to the Chargers, and then the Bengals beat Denver next week.
Yeah,
and assuming the Bengals beat Cleveland,
4% chance is still a chance.
That's right. You're saying there's a chance, baby.
All right, let's move on to college basketball. Crosstown shootout. Cincinnati finally gets it done. They break the 5-year losing skid in the shootout. Skinny, what were your overall takeaways?
Well, I give UC a lot of credit. I thought when it got down 7 and could have gotten down 9, I thought that was it. I thought the pressure cooker was going to get to Wes Miller in the moment, was going to get to the players in the moment, was going to get to the fans in the moment, and it didn't. And that was a great rally. That was such a big win for UC on so many fronts, because you lose to Xavier, which probably in retrospect is, and we'll talk about the Zach Freeman injury in a minute, is probably not going to look all that great because of where Xavier's season may be heading because of the Fremantle injury. But if you'd have lost that and then lose to Dayton, what the hell did you have on your resume? A win over Georgia Tech in the non-conference? So I think that was the big part. Now you go beat Dayton, and suddenly your non-conference resume does look not Kentucky-esque with wins over 2, top 5 teams, if you will, but pretty doggone good, especially when you get in the Big 12. You're never going to hurt yourself on a given night in that league. You're probably going to help yourself more often.
If you buy into vibes, pressure, confidence, all of the intangible stuff, this is a massive win for Cincinnati, I think. Because to your point, if you lose this one, it's all the outside noises. Here we go again. They can't win the big one. West can't get it done. Can't beat their rival. They're going into big games again. They're going to fall down the stretch. Then you've got a must-win game almost, it feels like, against Dayton. And I know that's ridiculous. We have so many big games. And you do. No doubt about it. You could still rectify your season after losing those 2 games. But, man, it just feels so much more pressurized and difficult at that point. You win the Xavier one, you've got nothing but momentum going into Dayton, and you win or lose that one, it's not a huge deal. I mean, if you win it, it's great. You're just absolutely rolling. If you lose it, you feel pretty good about where your non-conference schedule ended up even still. And even despite Xavier might slip down to being not as good of a win from a resume perspective, it's still just such a big monkey off your back and such a big momentum thing for this team.
And I guarantee you, for Wes Miller, I can only imagine the sigh of relief he took, more so than anything else, of for those reasons of, knowing you got it done for a change, or finally. And then, maybe that does carry over into closer games. Maybe you aren't quite as tense. Or, maybe he was the same tense self in huddles in this game, but for whatever reason, you got it done. And I think that's just a huge, huge boulder off of his back.
Well, I do think part of the reason they got it done is because a trend right now for this Xavier team is they fold in big moments at the end of games. We saw it at TCU. We saw it at Cincinnati. And you can say what you want about UConn being the defending national champions, but Xavier had a chance to win that game at UConn without Zach Fremantle.
Absolutely.
And they, in many ways, gave that one away, or at least didn't make any of the plays needed to try to come away with a big win on the road in that one. So I think Xavier definitely helped UC in that regard. But to your point about Wes, man, you could see the relief in the way he reacted after the game, the speech that Steve Logan posted from the locker room where he's humping the air and telling his guys it takes nuts to win a game like that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know this is another game for UC and Wes Miller, but I'm going to guess we might not see those videos after the TCU or the Kansas State wins this year.
No, you're right. It is such a bigger win than honestly it was a loss for Xavier. The loss for Xavier was obviously losing Zach Fremantle.
Yeah, and I mean, a crazy play. Did you see the play where it lobbed to a Spandego that he's going backwards trying to break up, and as he leans back and kind of tips it away, his feet go out from under him, and he kind of is flailing wildly, almost parallel to the ground. And then as he comes down, his left knee gets bent back. And the first thing to hit is kind of his foot. And it's such a hard impact. You can just see his knee get jarred like straight up into the air as his back makes the impact with the ground. And it's kind of a weird video once you realize what's actually taking place and that he hurt his knee in the play. Because originally you see it and you're like, how the heck could he have hurt his knee? It looks like he landed on his back there. But just a very strange freak injury. And again, a lot of people had questions about Xavier relying on a guy who had multiple foot surgeries. It seemed like the foot just couldn't hold up at this point. Are you really going to rely on this guy? To have him go down with an injury like this, that's totally unrelated to the foot, has nothing to do with it. Another freak injury that's really pretty pretty absurd the way it happened. That's just a tough blow for Zach. Definitely a guy who's tried to stick around here for 6 years now and make this final year happen. And then for the Xavier team, it is, I think a lot of people feel in many ways it's a death blow. I
think it is.
After watching the game against UConn, I think there's some optimism to believe maybe that's not the case, but it's going to be hard to win games when you have no legit center, essentially.
Yeah, I think it is a death knell, and I hate to go there with it, but I mean, kudos to them for last night. I honestly didn't think they could get to 60 points without him, and they got to 89. And yes, I know in overtime got them to 89, but they were in the 70s in regulation. So, kudos to them for that. But I just don't know how sustainable that's going to be, especially in the league. And I mean, outside of Butler and maybe DePaul, I mean, you're going to have no chance to win on the road, in my opinion.
But even like Butler starts a 7-foot center.
I know, yeah.
Who's doing some decent things for them.
And I know DePaul got their doors blown off the other night by St. John's, but I actually think they're better.
Yeah, and I think Xavier matches up better with them than they do some of these other teams. But yeah, I mean, aside from just a couple of these teams in the conference, it's hard to see, because even when Xavier plays really well, like against UConn, they shot the lights out from 3-point range. It's just going to be tough for them to make those plays down the stretch, get those defensive rebounds down the stretch, get stops against opposing front courts down the stretch to come away with these wins, even if they play well and they're in these games. I don't know. It's going to be very difficult for them.
All right, so let's take this to another jump. And again, it is a freak injury, but it is a guy who has an injury history. And you did try to bring in another center, and he got hurt. And so that's the unfortunate part, is two centers who might have started together actually are both out. Does this smack Deshaun Miller having to figure out a different way to recruit, a better way to recruit, a new way to recruit, or is this just bad damn luck?
That's a great question. And I think they really have to figure that out right now. The question is there even a system in place right now? Because essentially the model they went to is just rebuild a roster year to year with transfer portal guys, older, experienced. They have the second most experienced team in the country based on minutes played, according to KenPom right now. So it's not like they didn't do what they set out to do, which was get an older, more experienced team. But in terms of like do they need a new strategy? I'm not sure if you can even continue with this strategy, because it almost feels like you need a new team next year regardless, because you've relied so heavily on the portal this year. Some of those guys definitely didn't work out for you, but it's like, yeah, I mean, they're definitely going to have to rebuild next year's team almost entirely because of the way they put this year's team together. And then the question becomes, I mean, you didn't do a lot of recruiting for next year's freshman class. So it would seem once again, you're looking at the transfer portal. So I guess what we're asking is like, is it one and done transfer portal guys? Or are you looking for more multi-year transfer portal guys maybe this coming year? Or what is the wrinkle or strategy? Or is it basically just, hey, everything's year to year now? You're just building a team. We're not building a program. We're not trying to see out into the future of what's going to happen, because that's just impossible to do in an NIL transfer portal era. And we're just going to build the best team we can any given year based on the circumstances and the resources we have.
All right. Then you ask yourself the question of, is Sean capable of building a roster year to year? He went the European route last year. Didn't work. Yeah, I get why he did it. Just didn't work. This year, again, could you argue he try to get one more guy? Maybe. But again, bad luck happens, and there's nothing you can do about that. I mean, you have, again, two starters who are hurt, and there's nothing you can do about that. So, but I guess in this era, is he capable of building a roster is my question.
The one thing I'll say on the bad luck point, though, is I do think they created a little bit of this luck by the idea that you had Zach Freeman on Jerome Hunter coming back from major setbacks that cost him to miss an entire season. Then you went out and got a guy in John Hughley who hadn't been he's been a shell of himself for 2 seasons. I mean, he has not been healthy or right for 2 years either. You're expecting him to make a major bounce back. I mean, really, when you think about your 3 major front court players, and once Lucina Traore got on campus, they really loved his game and they expected him to be really good. But part of the reason they liked him so much is because John Hughley wasn't near what they expected him to be, and Lucina Traore stood out in comparison to him. So that's my only concern. When people say it's bad luck, it's like, yeah, it is. It's definitely bad luck that you've had these injuries, but you were also relying on 3 front court players going into this year that have had nothing but injury baggage and history.
All right, so I'll go back to, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot with this, but I mean, is Sean Miller capable of doing this year to year?
I mean, I don't think there's enough evidence to suggest that he's not in any way at this point, but I do think like the questions are going to be asked when you had the end at Arizona, you had a year away, you came back and you said, I have a new strategy for how we're going to do this. And then the entire sport got flipped on its head that strategy went out the window. And it's like, okay, well, we changed it up. We're doing things differently now. And you're 1 year into that. And it's like, okay, is that plan scrap? Is that even really a plan? Like, what is the next move? And understandably, Xavier fans are worried about, like, where does Xavier go from here?
That's a great question.
A standstill? Are we in a rut, or are we on a decline? Is the program going backwards at this point? Because you're now getting to the point where it's like been a decade without Xavier basketball hitting its standards and advancing at the rate, or even making the tournament at the rate that they expect to. So tough questions are going to be asked. And I think Sean Miller, his staff, everyone involved over there knows that as well as anybody. They set the standard as high as anybody. So they get that. But I am very curious to see what the roster building strategy looks like for next season, because like we talked about, I mean, they have 2 freshmen committed for next year. They have a couple guys coming back, but I don't know that those guys are the pieces you expect them to be when you got them last offseason now.
Yeah, no, it's and we may be talking about this with multiple teams as this thing unfolds.
Definitely. And that's the thing. Like, we're asking this question, like, can Sean Miller do this? It's like, well, can anyone? Because we're seeing Tony Bennett and Jay Wright and these other big time coaches drop out because they don't want to deal with it. Yep. So how many coaches can deal with it or have a system in place? I think we can point to a couple of guys that feel like maybe they know what they're doing. I mean, UConn's on an incredible tear right now that I think is a different level from most of the sport. But maybe you want to say, okay, Shaka Smart and Matt Painter have really figured out something. And it's like, well, maybe they have. But Shaka Smart also had 2 guys last year who are really special. And now he has Cam Jones, who looks like he's capable of maybe being like the best player in all of college basketball. So maybe it also just at the end of the day always comes down to you got to have really good players and you got to find a way to get lucky with that.
Yep.
Just last thought on the Crosstown shootout UC here. That UC Dayton game is going to be awesome, I think.
It's going to be a great game. It's going to be just a superb game. I mean, Dayton's really good. Actually, UNLV's pretty good. And so people are going to look at that and go, well, gosh, look at that. Again, don't forget, UC was at the end of this week, and UNLV is actually pretty good.
Yeah, it should be a good atmosphere. And you've got that game going on while you've got the first college football playoff game going. So that's just going to be a really fun night of sports watching here in the city. Louisville, Kentucky wins the game. Lamont Butler was just unbelievable in this one. Skinny, we were talking about, like, is he healthy enough? How big of a factor is he going to be in this one? And he goes for 33 points. He was perfect from the field, 10 of 10, 6 of 6 from beyond the arc with 6 assists. That's just an all-time Kentucky-Louisville rivalry performance right there from your point guard.
Yeah, I mean, 33 points on 10 shots is silly. And the funny part is he was actually 7 of 12 at the foul line. I mean,
yeah, he's missing all these free throws.
That's the only part of the game that was a flaw. I mean, the Kentucky-Louisville game always has, it feels like, a theme to it. It's that guy's game, the Rex Chapman game, the Samaki Walker game when he had a triple-double for Louisville. Many, many moons ago, I remember the late Cedric Jenkins flying down late, tipping it in at the buzzer to give Kentucky a win. It's a Cedric Jenkins game. And
I think all rivalries are kind of like that. We talk about that with the shootout all the time, right?
This was clearly the Lamont Butler game. And listen,
it was the great point guard battle game, I would say, because Chucky Hepburn was awesome for Louisville. He had like 26.
Yeah, Chucky Hepburn was really good. But that's the thing. I don't think you're going to see any more 30-point nights from Lamont Butler because he's not going to be perfect from the field. Again, he only did this on 10 shots. And I you know me, he's been my favorite player from Jump Street. And then you add 33 points on perfect shooting on top of it. I mean, that's just unfathomable. That dude he's a winner, period.
He is. That was a great get for Mark Pope and this system and them to rebuild this team with, because he is a winner. He will lead you if you put some talent around him. You know you're going to be in a good situation more often than not with a guy like that.
No question.
This is a fun season right now because the Kentucky fans I know are giddy in a way that they just haven't been in so long, and it just keeps growing with each week. And Skinny, now we're getting to the point where, assuming there's not a slip up here, that Florida Kentucky game here in a couple weeks is just going to be off the charts fun.
So I was listening to Kentucky Sports Radio the other day when I was driving, and they were going down the whole slate of SEC games, trying to decide what they thought Kentucky's SEC record would be. And it was a funny exercise because a couple of them right after that said, 5 losses, 6 losses. Was it good? Went down the slate. The losses started piling up a little bit more because it's just the league is nuts.
Insane.
I don't think anybody comes out of that league with less than 5 losses. I just don't. I don't see how that's possible in the league this year.
Quick sidebar on that. Do you think, given the timing of this, and I'm not saying it's necessarily because of this, although it might be, but with the NIL transfer portal being what it is right now, the SEC growing, expanding with conference realignment, for them to have this type of year in college basketball where they are clearly far and away the most dominant conference. And we also all know SEC far and away has the most money when it comes to NIL resources. Are we going to look around and start saying like, okay, that's what you have to do in college basketball. You've got to be in the highest conference, making the most football money to have a chance to compete. And are all the top prospects going to be going that way? Like, is this kind of the beginning of what we've all been fearing about the super conferences?
I think it is. I do. I think they've probably embraced NIL money for basketball probably more than most conferences have. And, and then it's a feeding frenzy at that point. That's where kids then want to go play. It's the team that's winning. It's the program that's got this, and they've got the money. I just think it feeds on each other.
But the other thing that we don't talk about enough in the SEC, it's just loaded with coaches now.
Oh, for sure.
The coaching is so good in the SEC now.
Yeah, I mean, big names and even new blood. I mean, look what Todd Golden's done. It came from San Francisco and doing just ridiculous things at Florida, and they're really, really good.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to go off tangent there.
No. I think it's a great point. No, it's a great point because here's the other part. So you're going to look, and Kentucky fans could lose their mind with this, right? If they go 12-6 in the league, and that could be really, really good. If they go 12-6 in the league, they're still going to be probably at worst a 2 seed. I mean that sincerely.
Well, with what they did in the non-conference,
yes.
We just talked about it. It's the best non-conference slate they've had since the year that they went undefeated through the entire season until the Final Four.
And the only 2 games left are Ohio State and Colgate. I mean, could you slip up for Ohio State? Maybe, but they're a turd. And
they should win that one.
So you're going into the conference slate with 1 loss, and you're going to lose games. You're going to lose games. This is a league, though. I would tell you this: the champion of this league won't lose more than 1 home game. It's the matter of how many can you go steal on the road, and those are going to be really hard because even maybe a bottom feeder, and I don't even know who the bottom feeder I would consider in the league this year would be. Even them at home is not going to be an easy game to play.
I just feel like betting SEC road dogs is going to be the play all year long
because they're going to be close games where they're going to lose. But yes,
yeah, just get. I'm sorry, home dogs. Home dogs. Home dogs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, take them all year and just be thrilled with that money line money.
Yeah, UK, South Carolina. Give me South Carolina plus 7.5.
Yeah. Okay, NKU, real quick, talk about the Norse. Won their last 4 games here, taking down Norfolk State 71-62 and Detroit Mercy 73-60 since we last spoke. The front court has had an awakening all of a sudden. Kian Atijere is blocking shots and dunking everything left and right. I'm not sure exactly what got into him, but we went from a game where Darren Horn was on the post game with us talking about like he can't only have 1 rebound for us to have a chance, and then out of nowhere it's like he's blocking everything, rebounding everything. So I don't know what they said to him to get him going, but all of a sudden you got him, you got LJ Wells, you got Trey Robinson all playing well in the front court. They're starting to look like the matchup problem for the Horizon League that we thought they could be with those big bodies and athleticism inside.
Yeah, I was guilty of this too. I think maybe we got over our skis with the Nicholls State loss. It's still unfathomable, but that felt like, that's what you are. You can't even win that. I mean, Purdue, Florida State actually played pretty well in both those cases. UC was kind of a dud, but again, tip of the cap to UC. They're a really good team this year. So it just felt like the Nicholls State game was the one that you just went, and then, I don't think anybody knows enough about Charleston, but Chris got a pretty nice little team there, and they're better, and they should have won that game, maybe not by double digits. But it just felt like that was the game that left the sour taste in your mouth. And now, to your point, I mean, I think they are the team back to being the team to beat in the Horizon. I mean, what other now? Like you've only played a handful of games. There's 2 undefeated teams left in the league.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like every year you get to this time of year and we start saying the same things about both the league and NKU. So it's like at some point people need to have a little bit of faith of like they've got a little bit of a system in place. Yes, they went out and they played a really difficult non-conference schedule and they got smacked around a little bit. And the Nicholls loss, you said that perfectly. That was the game that shook my confidence for a little bit where I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be trusting what I thought I saw in the preseason all of a sudden because Nicholls really took it to them at home. And that's a tough game for Nicholls to come and play. You're in Highland Heights. It's a quick turnaround, all of that. And they looked really good. So that was a discouraging performance, but they've bounced back. And the other thing is they've been winning these recent games like IU Indy and Detroit Mercy without some of their stars playing their best. Also Norfolk State, which I thought was a really nice win for them. It's like you got a game where Trey Robinson really doesn't do anything in the second half and you still pull that game out pretty easily. And then in this last game in Detroit Mercy, Sam Vincent doesn't make a field goal and you win the game easily. That's almost unfathomable a couple of weeks ago. So, I mean, you're definitely seeing some progress from them.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I will say the league does have a bunched up group. I know one team that's not going to be in that bunched up group.
I wanted to ask you about that team because their coach had an interesting moment.
Yes. Let's go there for a moment.
Let's talk about Green Bay, the Phoenix. Doug Gottlieb, who is a radio host, of course, a college basketball analyst, and now the head coach of the Green Bay Phoenix this year, is his first season as their head coach. And he has lost now 8 straight games. He's had a bit of a tumultuous season. He benched his best player a couple of weeks ago and then made him publicly apologize to everyone, which he got roasted for doing. And then now this week, he had this whole press conference where he laments the idea of playing non-Division I teams and bringing them into your gym. And he even used the phrase, I don't like playing nobody you and beating them by 20 points when it's 2 degrees out. But
that was Michigan Tech.
There's a process to this, he said. You just have to do these things. And then, lo and behold, Michigan Tech, a.k.a. Nobody You, came in and beat Green Bay on their home floor. And Doug Gottlieb no longer wanted to do his radio show, failed to show up for it that day, and is firing back on people on social media. Skinny, this is just playing out to perfection. We said it's going to go one of 2 ways. Either he pulls it off, and we're all looking around like, how the heck is he doing this? This is crazy. Or one of the most unlikable sports personalities we've seen in the last few decades absolutely fails in epic fashion, and everyone roasts him for it because they've been waiting for him to slip up like this ever since he last got busted for stealing his teammates' credit cards when he was in college. And everyone's getting that opportunity now. So the internet is having a lot of fun.
No question. And again, I think sometimes coaches at every level overdo things, right, of how hard they're grinding it and grinding the tape and all those things. I think some of that's just self-inflicted kookiness. There's some of that has to be done for sure, but some of it to me self-inflicted. But I never thought how this was going to work. I mean, they're 2 demanding professions. They really are. Whether you like Doug Gottlieb or not, he is he knows what he's talking about more times than not. He does. I'm sure he does plenty of research. He's not a dumb guy by any stretch of the imagination. It is demanding. Doing 3 hours of talk radio, I've done it. It's demanding.
You can't do a show without prepping for it.
Correct.
You can't get through it.
No, and then you're trying to coach Division I college basketball on top of it. I just that never seemed to make sense to me. I mean, I applaud him for stepping into the arena. I do, but that hire was just a dumbass hire because of that.
Yeah, and they were trying to play off of his notoriety, I think, and hoping that was going to help recruiting maybe with NIL as well. But I think everyone saw this coming for the most part, that you just cannot do these 2 jobs at the same time. And also, like, there was no reason to believe that Doug Gottlieb was going to be good at handling big personalities, good at recruiting, good at coaching young guys, or just a good coach in general.
Right.
Like, there was nothing to suggest that. You just completely went out on a limb hoping that his notoriety would get you through, and that's proving to be a questionable decision, to say the least.
No doubt.
But it is fun for us to watch. Shout out to Nobody You.
Yeah. Wow.
Which, by the way, NKU guard Dan Goresger transferred to NKU from Nobody You.
Well, because he wanted to go to somewhere and came from Nobody You.
Highland Heights is exactly somewhere you on the map.
That's right.
All right, let's switch gears here. College football. We'll go through this pretty quickly, but the college football playoff kicks off this weekend. We'll have 1 game Friday night, then 3 games going across the board Saturday. It's going to be incredible. Skinny, we'll start with this. Which first-round college football playoff team do you think is most likely to win their first-round matchup?
Man,
if you're doing like a confidence pick.
I know, man, oh man.
First?
I guess Penn State.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Who do you got?
I think I go Notre Dame.
Do you really? I don't know. That's just a weird. Because I will say this: Notre Dame has completely made us forget the Northern Illinois loss. I mean, they've played great on both sides of the ball. They run it, they throw it. I actually could make a case. In fact, we were walking in the Bengals locker room yesterday. This was for the players, but the social media team has like a whiteboard, and they'll have a question up, and they hope to get reaction from the players as they're walking into the locker room to their question. Their question was, who do you think is going to win the college football national championship? As I walked by, I just said, sneaky Notre Dame. That's all I'm going to tell you. So I do. They would be my future bet of the teams left to win it all because you get a little bit of value there. But I think that Indiana just They had two special team snafus. That's what I go back to in the Ohio State. Ohio State was better. Don't get me wrong. They were the better team that day. They weren't the scoring margin better, in my opinion. The two special team snafus totally changed that game. So I still think Indiana's pretty damn good.
I felt this way with the Ohio State game. It's like, they're going to have to prove it to me for me to really believe in this moment they'll be able to show up. It's going to be snowing. It's going to be cold. Notre Dame has been so solid.
They have been.
You're going to have to show it to me. Sorry, Indiana, but I think Notre Dame is the team that I'm most confident in. Who is the favorite that you think is most likely to get upset?
Ohio State. Really? I'm not afraid to take Tennessee in the money line there. Ohio State's offense, I just don't have any confidence in them anymore. And something's gone haywire there, whether it's the offensive line can't run block enough. Kyle Howard doesn't take care of the football. I don't think they do enough with their weapons, to be honest with you. I think they should do more, and they don't. They feel very conservative even in the passing game.
I agree with that.
And I think Tennessee's pretty damn good defensively. They
are very good defensively. I just don't know that they're the offense that they've been and the offense that I thought they might be to start the season. I'm going to say Penn State here. I mean, I don't love SMU, but I just don't really trust this Penn State team.
Other guys I've talked to and whatever my friend circle, when we talk about these games, that's the one team that they point to as well. That I just don't. I mean,
there's still Penn James State. Franklin too.
I know.
Right?
I just don't trust Penn State, and I get it. Penn State doesn't deserve anybody's trust because every big game he has coached and been in, they have lost.
Odds to win the college football playoff: Oregon plus 350. Texas plus 370, Georgia plus 500, Ohio State plus 500, Penn State 550, Notre Dame 700. Then here's the long shots: Tennessee 25-1, SMU 40-1, Indiana 40-1, Arizona State 50-1, Clemson 60-1, Boise State 60-1. Which, I mean, you mentioned Notre Dame there. Give me the favorite from the top half, the 7-1 odds or lower, and then the long shot that you like best.
Yeah, if I had $50, I think I'd put 40 of it on Notre Dame at 7-1, to 40 to win 280 plus my 40 back, 40 win 320, and I put $10 on Arizona State just because of how their draw shakes down.
Yeah, I mean they've got a nice path. I don't think they have any real chance to win, but they've got a nice path.
But they have a nice path, and you got to take advantage of the path.
50-1.
Yeah, that gets me $500 back. So I'll be willing. In fact, I may do that. I may do that even today, as a matter of fact.
I like it. Ask Skinny Anything came in. We'll ask it now. Who are you guys rooting for?
I really am not rooting for anybody. I'm an SEC guy. As a Kentucky fan, there's really not a team in there I dislike. I mean, you like I'd love to see Arizona State make a run. I think it'd be kind of fun. I'd like to see SMU make a run. It would be fun. But at the end of the day, you got a chunk of blue bloods in there that still are the blue bloods, man. I mean, Notre Dame's in there, Ohio State's in there, Georgia's in there, Texas is in there. Oregon, I think over the last 20 years can be clearly considered a blue blood. And I think what that's going to turn out to be is you're going to have great matchups once we get to the semifinals and beyond.
The only team I'd be pissed about winning is Georgia. That's the only team I don't want to see win.
Because you don't like Kirby Smart, or just recency bias, or
they've just been too good recently. And this isn't their year. Like that, they've been really good recently. This isn't the year to watch them win a national championship.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's their year. I'm with you. I mean, I guess if I was going to root for somebody because they've just been in football for so many years, it'd be Indiana.
It's a great story. I mean, there's a lot of good stories here, though, with this.
I know.
If it's any of the blue bloods.
I forgot about Dabble. They're a blue blood. They're not having a blue blood season. But, I mean, what if, remember he's the one guy that didn't want to do this portal stuff, and everybody laughed at him when he got blown out by Georgia in the opener. It's like, buddy, you better get with the time. What if he does it his way?
I mean, it'd be crazy to see. That would be a hell of a story too. Yeah. And honestly, like even down to the Ohio State with the Ryan Day situation where people are ready to fire him now. But then if he wins the national championship,
I still hate you because you lost to Michigan. But hey, we won a national championship. I mean, there's no doubt, and they're very capable of it. I mean, I'm the one crapping on them with the Tennessee game here, but I'm really not. I mean, I see a path for them winning the thing.
You know who I'm rooting for? Snow.
Yeah, Snow's going to be great.
And I guess I'm kind of rooting for Brian Snow too, because he's an Ohio State grad and fan. And I'd say Ohio State's probably the team I'd want to win the most if I had to choose. And then second to that would probably be like Notre Dame, just because of the local tie-ins. And I have family that are big Notre Dame fans. And he's working at Notre Dame now. So I'm kind of rooting for the weather Snow and Brian Snow in this.
There you go. Very well done. Very well done.
How about this? What do you think is going to win out here from a TV viewing perspective? I'm not talking about the actual amount of viewers, but like, what do you think the real sports fans are going to want to be doing here? Texans Chiefs will be going on during SMU Penn State Saturday, and Steelers Ravens will be going on during Clemson, Texas.
Yeah, I still think the NFL wins those battles just because.
Would it for you? Does it capture your interest in that moment?
I'll flip. I've always been a big flipper. I don't mind flipping, and that's just the right
most
amount.
People have two screens now, right?
Yeah, and I don't play that game. I just don't mind flipping. And for me, I'm so bad on a college football Saturday. I'm flipping between 6 games at once half the time. You're not asking me to flip between too many. And believe it or not, I'll even have a little action, and I did last weekend, and actually got myself a nice bankroll on those silly FCS games.
Of course you did. Who was playing that one? North Dakota State again?
All the Dakotas. There's North Dakota State, North Dakota, South Dakota State, South Dakota. I mean, all the Dakotas were playing.
Yep. All right, that takes us into our pick'em segment where we both went 2-0 last week because it was only the Bengals game. We had the same side on it, but I am finally back to 500.
We did pick the shootout though too.
Well, we didn't pick it. You took it as your best bet.
I did, and I said
you hit
Xavier, remember I said if you can get Xavier at 7.5 or higher, take Xavier, and I got it at 8 actually.
Here's the problem though: you parlayed that with Kentucky, and Kentucky.
I said Kentucky if they're single digits, and they weren't. They were 10.5, and I stayed away.
Fair enough. Okay, so you got your Xavier best bet half good. Army did not cover for me.
Yeah,
you are 54.
They cost me too, by the way.
Yeah, that was not good.
Thank you.
It did not work out at all.
And Friday, it was funny because I had Army. Who did I have? I had Army, Xavier, because I also put Xavier in a parlay, and Army over. And everything I'm reading that morning is like the under's like 16-1-1 in the last 18 games. I'm like, oh gosh, well, I'm already locked in. And the over was never a problem. It was the Army thing that was the problem.
Yeah, it was the Army part of it. And we had the same issue there. All right, Friday, 8 p.m., Indiana, Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a 7.5-point favorite. The total is 51.5.
I know what they're doing here, and I'm going to do it. They're reeling me in with the hook and the touchdown hook. I just got to do it. I'm taking Indiana in the points.
All right, what's your score here?
Let's go Notre Dame 31-27.
All right, so Indiana and the over easily there in a snowy South Bend. That's going to be awesome. Beautiful from a broadcast perspective if we get some real snow.
Need a snow globe.
I'm going Notre Dame 27, Indiana 17. So Notre Dame in the under for me. We're on completely opposite sides of that one.
Yep.
Saturday at noon, we've got SMU at Penn State. Penn State is an 8.5-point favorite. The total is 53.5.
Yeah, I tell you, SMU's gritty, but I just don't know if they're good enough on defense. I'm gonna go Penn State 34-21.
34-21. So that is Penn State and the over there. SMU is gritty, but they will not be doing the gritty enough times in this game to win, but they will cover. 27-21 Penn State. Penn State and the under for me. Here's my deal. I'm going all chalk with winners in these picks, but I will have a couple upsets against the spread.
I will say the early bowl games have been chalky.
Yeah. Saturday at 4, Clemson at Texas. Texas an 11.5-point favorite. 51.5 is the total.
I just don't trust the direction Texas is heading in. This would be the upset for me that Clemson could win outright. I'm not going to do it. I'll go Texas 27-24. They win a squeaker. But boy, I could honestly see a Clemson win here.
All right, so this is Clemson and the over. I'm on the same side of that. I said 31-21. So Texas wins by 10, but Clemson covers the number. But it's funny because I was looking at this and I thought that's the one that I feel like has the best chance to happen in terms of momentum and narrative going on right now. But then you start looking at like the computer metrics and the analysts and everything that people are saying. And you're like, everyone thinks Texas is going to blow them out. What am I talking about? So they scared me off that one a little bit. I won't lie. Saturday at 8 p.m., you got Tennessee at Ohio State. The Buckeyes are 7.5-point favorite. The total is 45.5.
I hate to do it. I do. There's rumblings that there's going to be a lot of Tennessee fans have already bought tickets. Man, Ohio State gets that early 3 and out, and the murmuring starts, and then comes the tight, puckered butthole for everybody, including Ryan Day and Chip Kelly.
I don't know. You might have to check your butthole analytics because you were wrong about Wes Miller's puckers.
I had the margin of 3. I picked 71-68. So I was right there.
That's true. You were within the margin of pucker.
I was.
Yeah.
I'm going Tennessee 23, Ohio State 20.
So the outright win.
Yep.
And that is the over. Total is 45.5.
And I mean this when I say this. I see a path for Ohio State being the national champion. I just think this would be the game. If you get through this game and maybe rebuild a little confidence, then yes, I think Ohio State can win the national championship. But I can also see this being the hangover game, the woe is us game. For some of these guys, we lost to Michigan. What the hell? I don't know, man. It just got a weird vibe for me.
There is not an honest Ohio State fan who could tell you otherwise. They all have that same feeling right now. They all have to be feeling worried about this first round matchup. I'm going to go 30-21. I think they get it done. Ohio State in the over for me. Finally, Sunday at 1 p.m., we've got Browns at Bengals. Bengals are a 7.5-point favorite. The total is 46.5.
Dorian Thompson-Robinson. My, oh, my. Bengals in a walk. 34-13 Bengals.
34-13?
Yep.
So that is the over by 0.5 point. I'm going to go Bengals 28, Browns 17. So Bengals and the under for me. And that brings us to our best bet of the week. Skinny, what do you got for us?
I'm taking Tennessee in the 7.5 points. I mean, if you're going to give me points in the game, I'm picking an outright winner. I'll take the points.
I'm going to go with a little teaser action.
Okay.
I'm going to go Notre Dame up to, Notre Dame down to 1.5.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with Ohio State down to 1.5.
That's not bad. I may hedge my bet with something like that. That's actually not a bad call.
Yeah. All right. Ask Skinny anything. Does Skinny have any good stories from his early days filling in on NKU play-by-play on the radio?
I would say the all-inclusive trip to Cancun where they played a tournament in a ballroom. Steve Moeller was the color analyst. We had just a great time because the all-inclusive meant for us, all we were doing was the games. We went to shoot around a couple times, but they really didn't shoot around. It was more of a walkthrough because it's a quick turnaround format.
Right.
The food was great. The resort was great. And let me just tell you, when you're at all-inclusive and you ain't got to worry about the beer tab or the bar tab, you just go, man. You just go.
Yeah, all-inclusives are fantastic.
The best was Mo and I had a few too many, and we got back to the room at like 2:30 in the morning one morning, and he decided to call Hugs, and guess what Hugs did? Oh, he answered, and he was awake, and he was with friends drinking in his house, in his man cave.
Just don't fill us in on what he said.
No, I'm not. That would be the best part of the story. But just the fact that he answered, I'm like, he's not going to answer Mo. Oh, yeah, well, watch. And he did.
Yeah, I don't think this podcast is capable of getting canceled, but if you say something that Bob Huggins said on a phone call at 2 a.m., you'll probably do that.
Yeah.
What's a bad habit that Skinny would like to pick up?
Pick up?
Pick up. What bad habit would you like to add to your life?
I tried this once because I always thought it looked cool, and it just gave me such a buzz the few times I did it. So when I worked the desk on Friday nights at the Post, especially like in high school sports season, this is when I was probably the high school editor, I guess, because you do some odd jobs like, help edit a few things here and there, but you're kind of waiting for the busy part of the night when the games would come rolling in. Then you compile the games. For those that don't remember, back in the newspaper days, you'd compile all the games, and I was the Ohio guy then, and so we had a ton of games. I had to edit all that stuff. So it was the calm before the storm. And so one guy one night brought in one of those little snuff packets. He goes, hey man, this might get you through till the time to work. I put it in, dude. I got such a high, such a rush. I'm like, I got to do that again.
One more time. Spinning?
Oh, it was brutal. I had to go gun a Coke down just to kind of calm my whole body down.
Wow.
And
lucky didn't puke.
I don't know why that always felt like a cool. I mean, back in high school, I did this once. We used to take a wad of chewing tobacco and wrap bubble gum around it.
Oh, you choked on it.
Well, I stole a base and I didn't swallow the whole chew, but a bunch of the juice went down. Oh my! I yacked for about 10 minutes. So I always thought that was cool to do, and I quickly learned on both cases: A, it's out of my league, and B, it's gross.
Yeah, you know what I'd like to do now? Now that you mentioned that, is a old pipe.
I had a pipe once for a small
chunk of pipe and like that. Yeah. That would be a cool little hobby to pick up now in the 2024.
I'm not against it. I'm not a big smoker. I like a cigar every once in a while. I know, some guys will do it every day. I just can't. I'm like, when I mean once in a while, I'm like twice a year probably.
Cigars are fine, but then you wake up the next morning and you want to die. It's just like your
it's gross.
Mouth tastes like death. I mean, it's disgusting.
It is.
But yeah, I would like seeing a guy on a smartphone and then go into his like pipe after that would be a good look in 2024. Which sport would be easiest to officiate?
I'm gonna say baseball, and that's not, you're technically not officially you're an umpire, but you are the official of that game. I've never thought balls and strikes would be hard to call. I don't think bases are hard to umpire. I just don't. I think that would be the sport. Or slow pitch softball. Although slow pitch softball, you got to
that arc stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing that can be deceiving.
Yeah, I feel like someone's going to call me out and make me look stupid on this and on some social media platform, but baseball would have the fewest rules too, right? Or at
Yeah,
least the
yeah,
fewest rules that you have to process in real time.
yeah.
Like, I mean, if a baseball thing happens
In
that's obscure, you like get to corral each other and talk about it and then
correct.
assess what happened, right?
Yeah, I mean, like make sure you call the infield fly rule properly, some things like that. What the ground rules are at the different places you would umpire. And it's funny. This is going to sound odd for somebody that yaks at officials as much as I do. Well, I can't do it a ton as an assistant coach, but when I was a head coach, I yacked enough. I knew where the line was. People probably think I get teed up all the time. I think I got 5 technical fouls in 6 years as a coach. So I know where the line is. But if someone yaks at officials and complains about block charges, it's a hard game to officiate. It really and truly is.
Well, it's hard. And then football, they have so many rules and they change them so often. And then some of the rules just like, quite honestly, are impossible to actually assess in real time. Like when you're talking about things like the catch and pass interference and all these different rules that they have such intricacies to, and they change them year after year. And you're doing it with the best athletes in the world while you're sprinting down the field in real time. They're sprinting and jumping in real time. It's just impossible to officiate all that consistently.
Well, it's funny. So our manager who played on the football team, he was a starting offensive lineman on Beechwood State Championship football team. He serves as our basketball team manager, but he's also already official. He does some freshman and JV games, and he's really good. I think he's going to be a really good. Wouldn't shock me to see him in college before he's 30 years old. He knows how to take charge. He knows the rules. So we had an incident where we were running some kind of takeoff play against the press, and one of our kids literally, as he was trying to save the ball in bounds, tried to punch it, and he did. He directly punched it out of bounds. And the kid was there, and he goes, that's a violation. I go, what? He goes, you literally cannot punch a basketball. It's a violation. And I went, like, he said, no. He goes, you can. And I said, show it to me. He got his rule book out. I'm like, holy cow, I've never heard of that being a violation.
Yeah, there's all types of weird stuff out there. Most of it, no one would ever notice if you're getting it right or not. But yeah, it is hard to officiate basketball and football. I think. I mean, I'm not saying baseball is easy, but I agree with you that like the strike zone is the hardest part of that, and you kind of get to make it up your own. I mean, once you decide what it is, you just got to be consistent with it.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll wrap it up with this, and this is coming, I think, from our question that involved Rudy a few weeks ago. Rank these iconic sports underdogs based on who would be easiest to coach. Rudy, Rocky Balboa, the Jamaican bobsled team, the Cleveland Indians from Major League, and the Mighty Ducks.
Ranking from easiest to hardest? Jamaica
easiest to coach.
Jamaica bobsled team would be the hardest to coach because I know nothing about it. I don't even know if they'd be doing it right.
Plus, they didn't even like each other to begin with. They were a hard group to get to come together for the real. Right. So yeah, I think you'd have trouble.
Mighty Ducks were a bunch of delinquents.
What? But that'd be good. You are built to handle that type of group. I feel like you're the wily old. You're the Finding Forrester guy for them.
I'll actually put the Indians actually as the second hardest because what he did to get the most out of like Willie Mays Hayes and then figure out that Charlie Sheen needed glasses. Help the old man pitcher get through some things, the creaky kneed catcher. I mean, that guy did wonders with some really bad parts.
What was that manager's name?
He had the raspy voice and he was in Nash Bridges as the father at the end. I can't think of I think he passed away not too long ago. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're looking it up, which is
Lou Brown.
Lou, thank you, Lou Brown. Yeah. Lou Brown.
James Gammon.
Yeah, I thought he did a great job, but that would have been a very tough team. And then who do we have left? We got Rudy,
Rocky and Rudy.
Yeah, Rocky would be 2, Rudy be 1. I mean, they're both hungry. I don't know enough about boxing to have coached him. I probably don't know enough about football to coach Rudy, but I just know Rudy. Oh, there was no coaching to Rudy. It was Rudy, go be a punching bag.
Yeah, and the thing is, you might want Rocky because he has a little more talent there. It feels like than Rudy does.
Yeah, maybe.
And just an iron jaw,
a complete iron jaw, and then he can get blood out of both eyelids and still fight.
Yeah. So all right, that's a pretty good question.
It is a good one. I've got the one that I've held over on the ice cream.
That's right.
So this is ranking 10 ice cream flavors. This is George who said he's a big ice cream guy. Like I'm a big ice cream guy. So he's asked me to rank the following: chocolate, vanilla, mint chip, chocolate chip, cookies and cream, moose tracks, or any peanut butter flavor, salted caramel, Neapolitan, chocolate chip cookie dough, and he says his personal favorite, chocolate marshmallow.
All right, so these are all like the basics for the most part, except maybe chocolate marshmallow.
So here's what I'm going to tell him. Chocolate marshmallow is a no for me, so I'm replacing that with either an orange or rainbow sherbet.
That's BS. Chocolate marshmallow is a banger. I love it. Might be number 1.
And it's weird. I can literally eat peanut butter out of a jar, and I can't eat peanut butter cookies or peanut butter ice cream.
Really? That's another. Yeah, you have terrible taste.
That was a no for me. So I'm switching that to Swiss chocolate almond, and I've thrown one in just for me. So here we go. Number 10 is vanilla, because you know why? It's just vanilla. It's got to have chocolate syrup on. I can't.
The only time I like vanilla is when I'm wearing my shoes.
Number 9 is Neapolitan. I had that a lot as a kid. I don't know why my mom and dad like Neapolitan ice cream, and I don't know. It doesn't. It's kind of like vanilla for me too. It's got the different things in it, but I'm with it. Yeah. Number 8, salted caramel. It's solid. 7, chocolate chip cookie dough is a little too rich for me, but it's in the mix. I can eat it. Cookies and cream I fell in love with for a long time, and again, that was a little too rich for me, and I've kind of passed on that over time. So here come the top 5. Any flavored sherbet. I love orange sherbet. I know it's simple, but it always feels refreshing, especially in summertime. Number 4, mint chip, and then here they come. Number 3, chocolate. Number 2, Swiss chocolate almond, and for me, number 1, the chocolate chip from Grater's.
So you're just a chocolate guy.
I'm just a chocolate guy.
Well, we're getting out of here. Have you ever had the Ben and Jerry's ones where they're doing like all the fun? It's like chocolate fudge lovers delight or something. They have those wacky names, but then it's like all types of stuff in it.
Ooh, I probably would like that.
Those Ben and Jerry's ones are insane. They're like too much, but they are good.
They are good. You're right. I don't eat them very much, but you're right. They do come up with the weird names for it.
The other one, when you mentioned the cookies and cream, it made me think of this. Is a lady at my UDF one time was doing this. I saw her doing it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to try that. I did. It was amazing, but it's probably about 2 billion calories. So I'll probably put that one on the shelf. Cookies and cream ice cream with the peanut butter shake mixed in.
Wow.
Off the charts good.
That would probably I wouldn't like that, but that sounds like you'd be bloated for a month. Yeah, you'd be bloated for a month.
Yeah. It's just diabetes, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. George has another question I'll get to next week. Another rankum question. I like those rankum questions.
All right, thanks, George.
All right, thanks for that. Thanks very much for watching and listening. For Rick Brewing, I'm Richard Skinner. It's been the Skinny Podcast, the weekly Potpourri edition, presented by Blake, the Attorney Maislin.